South Korea has taken an unthinkable step. The country has not only begun a process of rapprochement with China, it is completely shifting its focus from America to China. And the signal was unmistakable. Recently, Chinese President Xi Jinping made a visit to South Korea, the first in 11 years, and met with the new South Korean President, Lee Jae-myung. During this meeting, a number of agreements were signed that reveal the full gravity of the situation. The key and most pivotal one was the currency swap agreement between the central banks of China and South Korea, worth about 70 trillion South Korean won, equivalent to roughly $49 billion, for a term of 5 years. This swap line strengthens the financial and economic ties between the two countries, creates a reserve mechanism in case of instability in global currency markets, and signals to the Chinese side that South Korea is ready to expand its communication and cooperation beyond its relations with the West. China, for its part, is reinforcing its position in the region. It now views South Korea not merely as an American ally, but as a partner with whom it can engage in dialogue, carry out projects, and reshape the geo-economic architecture. For the US administration, this came as a shock, yet in hindsight, it was predictable. Donald Trump's policy toward allies played a decisive role in this rapprochement. He expelled South Korean workers, imposed massive tariffs, and pressured Korean investors to put more money into the US, even though they already did, and in doing so, created in Seoul a sense that the Atlantic and the Pacific no longer played equal roles. South Korea has made its decision. It is taking a new path. It is making it clear that if the United States does not take action, it could lose one of its most important allies in Asia. Meanwhile, China is becoming a new center of power that is attracting America's once closest partners. The internal logic is as follows. South Korea has long seen itself as a bridge between the West, represented by the United States, and the East, represented by China. But now it is rebuilding that bridge and stepping toward the East. This is not merely an economic project, it is a strategic turn. And Xi Jinping's visit has become the symbol of a new era. According to reputable publications and insiders, negotiations had been underway for months, and the signing of the swap line agreement is only one element of a larger package of cooperation memoranda between Seoul and Beijing, covering services, agriculture, digital technologies, and media. It is also noted that the economic and financial parameters were carefully chosen to give South Korea genuine flexibility. Having such a large swap line allows it to reduce its dependence on the dollar in trade with China, mitigate risks related to sharp currency fluctuations, and strengthen its own status in the region. For the United States, this means that the old model of one ally for all scenarios is starting to fail. If South Korea, one of America's most technologically advanced and geopolitically important partners, decides to partially turn away, Washington will have to either offer new incentives or accept the loss of influence. There are nuances. South Korea has not declared that it is abandoning its alliance with the United States entirely. No, it is merely adjusting the balance. But this very adjustment toward China sends a signal to the world. It means that Asia is moving toward multipolar engagement, where China is no longer simply a friend-enemy dichotomy, but a full-fledged partner. For the Trump administration and its foreign policy course, this could become a serious challenge. For decades, US strategy has been based on the assumption that countries like South Korea would safeguard American interests in the Asia region. But now, one of them is showing that it can and wants to work with another center of power. Examples from other regions show that once one ally starts moving toward another player, it triggers a chain reaction. South Korea now plays the role of an opening door. China, in turn, sees this as an opportunity to strengthen its influence, trade structures, currency links, and technological cooperation in East Asia. And the economic reality confirms this. China is South Korea's largest trading partner. Therefore, it would be strange if Seoul did not use its potential, especially when the US strategy looked increasingly demanding, urging more investments in America, more tariffs, and more compliance. South Korea decided it had had enough of being reactive. It would become an active player. But what is the outlook? If the United States does not offer South Korea either new security guarantees or better economic terms, Seoul may gradually reduce the US presence in its strategic decision-making. China, in turn, would gain not just a new point of leverage, but a crucial partner that could become a key link in the chain of regional cooperation between China, South Korea, and Japan. It is important to understand that this shift does not mean an immediate break with the United States. It is more of a preparation for a scenario in which partners act more flexibly, choosing with whom and how to cooperate. Yet such cooperation with China has already become public and serious, and this changes the tone of regional diplomacy as a whole. In the context of global geopolitics, this is a signal to the United States. Your model of squeezing competitors and raising tariffs may have the opposite effect. A signal to China, we are open. A signal to other Asian countries, it is time to look beyond the West. There is also a financial aspect. A currency swap line is not only an instrument of settlement, but also of trust. When the central bank of country A agrees to provide its currency to the bank of country B, it means that country B is recognized as important, stable, and a partner. In other words, China is saying, we see South Korea, we consider it an equal. And South Korea is responding, we are ready. Thus, we are entering a new phase. The East Asian financial and economic architecture is beginning to change. The time when the dollar was the only key currency and when all major deals went exclusively through the West has passed. Now, Asia wants its own network, its own channels, its own currency links. And South Korea is becoming one of the first major players in this transformation. However, what worries Washington most is not the fact of the currency agreement itself, but how quickly the tone of South Korean diplomacy is changing. Just a year ago, Seoul chose its words carefully, trying not to irritate the American administration, but now it speaks with confidence. We act based on our national interests. According to the Korea Herald, during the closed part of the talks with Xi Jinping, Lee Jae-myung stated that South Korea intends to strengthen its economic sovereignty and reduce its vulnerability to external pressure. These words reflect a new era, one in which even the oldest US allies are beginning to think independently. Behind the scenes in Seoul, there is already talk of creating a special investment fund called Asia Link, which would finance joint projects with China in semiconductors, green energy, and shipbuilding, without the participation of American companies. And if this plan is implemented, South Korea will effectively enter a new Asian economic orbit, where China becomes the center of gravity and America merely one of the outside observers.